Picture this. Your dog just finished dinner. He's lying by the couch, tail thumping, completely normal. 90 minutes later, he's pacing in circles, trying to throw up, and nothing is coming out. 2 hours after that, without emergency surgery, he could be gone. This isn't a rare fluke. This is one of the most common reasons large breed dogs die suddenly, and most owners have no idea it's even a threat until it's already happening in their living room. I've treated this condition in the ER, and I can tell you, honestly, it's one of the cases that keeps veterinarians up at night. Not because it's rare, but because it's fast, and because so many owners waste the exact minutes that would have saved their dog's life. I'm Dr. Albert, and I'm a licensed veterinarian. My whole job on this channel is to take what I see in the clinic and hand it to you before you ever need it in an emergency. Today we're talking about gastric dilatation and volvulus, the medical name for bloat. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what it looks like, why it happens, and the specific changes you can make tonight that meaningfully lower your dog's risk. Stick around, because Chapter 3 is going to overturn something you were probably taught was good advice. And if you want more straight from the clinic breakdowns like this, subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. Let's start with what's actually happening inside the dog's body, because once you understand the mechanics, the symptoms make a lot more sense. Think of the stomach as a bag that hangs inside the abdomen, held in place loosely by soft ligaments. Under normal conditions, that bag fills with food, digests, and empties out just fine. But in certain dogs, particularly deep-chested large breeds, that bag can fill rapidly with air and gas, expand like a balloon, and become heavy enough that it starts to swing. When it swings too far, it rotates on its own axis. That's the volvulus part, the twist. Once the stomach twists, both the entrance and the exit seal shut. Nothing can move forward, nothing can come back up. Gas keeps building with nowhere to escape. And here's the part that makes this a true emergency rather than just an uncomfortable night. That twist pinches off the blood vessels feeding the stomach and often the spleen too. Blood flow to the heart drops. The dog goes into shock. Stomach tissue starts to die from lack of oxygen. Left untreated, this is fatal, often within a few hours of the first symptom. This isn't a condition where you wait and see. This is a condition where the clock is working against you from the very first sign. Breeds most at risk include Great Danes, German Shepherds, Standard Poodles, Boxers, Weimaraners, and Doberman Pinschers. If your dog has a deep, narrow chest, this video is essential viewing, so keep watching. Now let's talk about how to recognize it, because catching this early is genuinely the difference between a routine surgery and a tragedy. There are 3 signs I want burned into your memory. The first, and honestly the most telling, is dry retching. Your dog looks like he's trying to vomit, heaving over and over, but little or nothing comes up, maybe just foam or drool. A dog that normally vomits food will bring something up. A dog with a twisted stomach physically cannot. If you see repeated attempts to vomit with nothing productive coming out, that is not a wait-and-watch situation. That is a get-in-the-car situation. The second sign is a swollen, tight abdomen, especially right behind the ribs. If you gently press or tap that area and it feels firm and drum-like, almost like tapping a balloon, that's trapped gas and it's a red flag. The third sign is behavioral. Dogs with bloat are miserable and they show it. Restlessness, pacing, an inability to get comfortable, excessive drooling, a hunched or stretched out stance with the front legs down and rear end raised, almost like a dog doing a slow motion bow. That posture is often the body's attempt to relieve internal pressure. And when you see it paired with retching and a tight belly, you don't call the vet in the morning. You call on the way to the emergency clinic right now tonight. I say this as gently as I can. Owners who wait to see if their dog seems better in an hour are the cases we lose. Time is the single biggest factor in survival here. So now that you know what it looks like, let's talk about why it happens, because there's a lot of outdated advice floating around, and some of it might actually be working against you. Myth 1, cold water triggers bloat. I hear this constantly, and it's simply not supported by the evidence. The temperature of the water isn't the problem. The problem is speed. A dog that gulps down water too fast, especially after exercise, swallows large amounts of air along with it. That's called aerophagia, and it's a real contributor to bloat risk. Cold water itself, including ice cubes, is not the villain here. Gulping is. Myth 2, and this one surprises almost every dog owner I mention it to, elevated food bowls prevent bloat. For years, this was standard advice, even from vets, myself included when I was in vet school. But more recent veterinary research has actually found the opposite. Raised bowls change the angle of the neck and esophagus in a way that can make dogs swallow more air, not less. Current guidance from most veterinary internal medicine specialists favors ground-level feeding for at-risk breeds. If you've got a raised feeder at home for a large or deep-chested dog, this is genuinely worth reconsidering, and I'd encourage you to bring it up with your own vet at your next visit, since individual recommendations can vary. Now let's talk about what actually does raise risk. Fast eating is a big one, especially in multi-dog households where dogs compete over food and eat as fast as possible out of anxiety. Heavy exercise on a full stomach is another major factor because a full, heavy stomach swinging around during vigorous activity is far more likely to rotate, and diet plays a role too. A single large meal once a day stretches the stomach ligaments over time, and diets that are heavy in fat as one of the first few ingredients tend to ferment and produce more gas during digestion. All right, let's move into what you can actually do about this because information without action doesn't protect your dog. I'm going to walk you through this in phases, starting with the immediate daily changes, then the deeper root cause fixes, and finally the long-term prevention option that essentially eliminates the danger for good. For the immediate changes first, feed from the ground, not an elevated stand, unless your vet has specifically recommended otherwise for a medical reason unrelated to bloat. Second, if your dog inhales food in under a minute, get a slow feeder bowl. These have raised ridges or maze patterns built into them that force your dog to eat around obstacles instead of vacuuming the bowl clean. It turns a 30-second meal into a much safer 5 or 10-minute one. Third, split meals up. Instead of one large meal a day, feed 2 or even 3 smaller portions. A smaller stomach is simply harder to flip, mechanically speaking. Fourth, if you have multiple dogs, separate them at mealtime, different rooms or crates. Competitive eating driven by anxiety is one of the more preventable risk factors we see. Now let's go a layer deeper into root cause changes around diet and behavior. One thing I recommend to my own clients is incorporating larger chewable pieces of dog-safe protein into meals rather than relying entirely on small kibble pieces that get swallowed almost whole. Chewing naturally slows down eating and increases saliva production, which helps with digestion. A quick safety note here, if your dog tends to gulp food without chewing at all, don't introduce large chunks that could become a choking hazard. Cut them into manageable sizes or place them inside the slow feeder so your dog is forced to work for them piece by piece. Also, enforce a firm rest period after meals. No running, no wrestling, no jumping, and no chugging large amounts of water for at least 60 minutes after eating. This single habit alone removes one of the most common triggering scenarios I see in clinical practice. And I do want to flag one thing clearly so you can verify it with your own vet, since guidance here can vary by source and by individual dog. Some owners keep human anti-gas medication on hand, thinking it can help in a bloat emergency. I'd urge real caution with that idea. Even if it offers mild relief for ordinary gas, it cannot undo a physical twist in the stomach. If the stomach is actually rotated, that is a mechanical problem that only surgery can fix. Please don't let any home remedy, including over-the-counter gas medication, delay a trip to the emergency vet if you're seeing the warning signs I described earlier. Finally, let's talk about the long-term prevention option, because for high-risk breeds, daily habits reduce risk, but they don't eliminate it entirely. There's a procedure called a prophylactic gastropexy. In plain terms, it's a surgery where the stomach is surgically attached to the inside of the abdominal wall so it physically cannot rotate anymore. The stomach can still bloat with gas in rare cases, but without the ability to twist, the life-threatening volvulus portion is essentially taken off the table. Many vets can perform this at the same time as a routine spay or neuter, which means no extra anesthesia event for your dog. If you own one of the higher risk breeds I mentioned earlier, Great Dane, German Shepherd, Standard Poodle, Boxer, Weimaraner, Doberman, I genuinely encourage you to have this conversation with your own veterinarian. It's one of those rare situations in medicine where a single preventive procedure can essentially remove a fatal risk from your dog's future. So let's bring this all together. Bloat, or GDV, is a rapid, life-threatening twisting of the stomach that's most common in large, deep-chested breeds. The warning signs are dry, unproductive retching, a tight and swollen belly, and restless, uncomfortable behavior, sometimes with that stretched-out, bowing posture. If you see those signs, you don't wait. You go straight to the emergency vet. On prevention, feed from the ground, slow down fast eaters, split meals into smaller portions, separate competitive eaters at mealtime, enforce rest after eating, and for high-risk breeds, talk to your vet about a preventive gastropexy. I know this is a heavy topic, and honestly, that's exactly why I wanted to cover it. The dogs I've seen come through the ER with this condition were loved, well cared for, and their owners simply didn't know what they were looking at until it was almost too late. You watching this video means your dog just got a little bit safer, and that matters to me more than you probably realize. If you've ever had a scare with bloat, or if you own one of these high-risk breeds and you're feeling a little more prepared right now, tell me in the comments. I read all of them, and I want to hear your story. If this video gave you something worth knowing, hit that like button so it reaches more owners who need to see it, and subscribe so you catch the next clinical breakdown before you need it in an emergency. Take care of those food bowls tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.